Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Before I start this video, as you may know, there's currently a virus spreading in China and all over the world actually. I just hope that all of you guys stay healthy, and I know that some of my subscribers are actually from China. So if you're watching and you're currently in China, I hope you guys get everything together. I hope everything turns out to be well. And I also hope that everyone who's already ill or sick gets healthy again, and that the situation gets under control very fast. I just wanted to say that. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who thinks like that. Alright, so with that being said, let's talk about what we are going to build today. So we are going to build today this kind of Instagram clone design inside WebFlow. So you can head over to instagramclone.webflow.io and check this out for yourself. Obviously not a really functional Instagram clone, it's basically just the design itself. And so this tutorial is about how we can recreate the Instagram account page in WebFlow completely from scratch. And you could take this later on and add some functions to it, but I will talk about this in just a moment. This is of course all responsive, so I can minimize that and it works just nicely. There we go. And yeah, I would say let's get started. Let's head over to webflow.com and let's talk about quickly what WebFlow is. So WebFlow is basically an HTML editor inside the browser that allows you to create and design websites right inside the browser itself without really the need to write any HTML or CSS on your own, which is kind of crazy. But there are actually a lot of editors already out there. For example, Wix.com is probably one of the most famous ones. They give you kind of the ability to create quickly a website and add some styles to it with their editor. But at the same time, you are kind of like coupled to their platform. So you have to use their platform or to host your website and things like that. And that's not really something you want if you are from the back end. Because, for example, if you use Rails, it would be nice to be able to use these design and styles right inside Rails, right? Well, Webflow gives us basically the ability to do that, and that's really crazy, okay? And so that's why I want to show you Webflow. Signing up is completely for free, so if you haven't already signed up, quickly create a new account, and then once you've done this, click here on View Dashboard. And before we dive into Webflow, let's quickly talk about the plans that you can use, because it's not completely for free, obviously. But the starter free plan gives you 2 projects, client billing if you just want to use Webflow for web design, and it also gives you free staging, which is basically the Webflow solution for hosting. It doesn't give you code export, no white labeling, no site password protection, and no team dashboard. But if we click here on monthly, you can get for just $24 a month 10 projects, client billing, enhanced staging, and also code export. So what is code export? And again, I will just show you this in just a moment. But code export is basically the ability to export the code that you just generated inside Webflow. Okay, so whenever you do something in Webflow, it generates HTML and CSS code in the background. And this is kind of crazy if you think about that, because it really produces super clean code. So theoretically, you could use Webflow, export your code for just $24, and then simply cancel your plan. In this case, you would just pay at maximum $24. The annual plan is $16 a month, but you have to pay it for a period of 12 months. Okay, so again, you don't need to do that. You can use the free plan, especially for this tutorial. I just wanted to mention this, okay? And by the way, I'm of course not sponsored or paid by Webflow by any means. I just wanted to share Webflow because I think it's an awesome tool, okay? So let's head over to the dashboard, and here we can click on new project, and you can choose either a blank template or these pre-existing templates here, which is also pretty awesome because you can customize them the way you want it. There are also paid templates, which are oftentimes like come with a higher quality or better design. But there are also a lot of free templates that you can use. You can search for specific categories, and yeah, you can all download them and customize them the way you want them to look like, which is also pretty awesome. But for this tutorial, we'll start completely from scratch since I want you to really understand how WebFlow works. So let's head over to blank here. Let's click on select, and then let's call this one Instagram clone. Create project. And so WebFlow is really great, especially if you're not that good at HTML and CSS. So basically me, you know, it's kind of like hard if you're in the back end and do some front end stuff. It takes actually a lot of practice to get really good at CSS, especially if you want to make it look good and also make it kind of like responsive. And yeah, I guess with WebFlow we have finally some kind of an alternative that we can use. So let's get started here. Let's click here on this plus icon and let's scroll down to get the navbar, and let's just drag and drop that in. And so there we go, we have now a navbar inside our window here, preview, and as you can see we have here 4 icons at the top, and each of them display a specific width, okay, or a different device. So we can click here, for example, on tablet, and this will give us a preview how our website would look like on the tablet. And the same goes for here, landscape for the phone, and then also a portrait mode for the phone. And this is pretty awesome because this way you can design your website responsive pretty easily, right? This is super easy to handle, and it's just amazing. You also have here this toggle preview that gives you like a live preview of your website, how it would look like and how it would feel like. So you can basically already click on links this way and test them out and see how animations work and things like that. So this is also pretty awesome. And now let's talk about the most important feature, especially if you're in the back end, and that is the function to export your code. So if you click here on this icon, you see that this will load a preview of our existing code that we currently have inside our project. So WebFlow just generated that when we added the navbar to our project. And again, this is pure HTML, okay? So there's no custom code here whatsoever. You could just grab that and paste it inside your project and it would work. Now again, we need to upgrade our plan in order to be able to do that, but yeah, I think it's really worth considering how much time you save with WebFlow and how much functions and abilities they give you. But yeah, let's just start to build the app. So we will obviously recreate this, and this is just a previous design I've done before to kind of like be prepared for this tutorial, or be better prepared. So we will start with the navbar. So you can click on that, and by the way, here on the right side you see we have, for example, margin and padding. So this follows the exact same rules as in CSS, okay? So if you have any CSS knowledge previously, you could just apply that here, okay? Because it follows the same principles, and you will see this in just a moment. So let's take, for example, the navbar, and let's change the color to a white color, because on Instagram the navbar is white or whitish. And then we have here navbar brands, and let's add here an image to that. So let's just drag and drop that into here, and then we can click here on choose image, and then on upload to upload a new image. And I already downloaded the Instagram logo, and you can find that on Google if you just type in Instagram font logo PNG transparent, and then just download here one of these logos. You can also use this one if you want to. Just make sure it has a transparent background. Otherwise, I mean, we have a white background, so normally if a logo has also a white background, you could still use it. But if you have a transparent one, you can use it on any background you want. So now that we have done that, make sure to check HIDPI, and then we want to change the width here to, I guess, 150 pixels, something like that. Let's close that, and there we go. Now we have here our image. So this is kind of like a little bit off. So what we can do is, just like in CSS, add here some kind of margin, maybe of 10, and there we go. We have here already our logo. And we can check it out how this will look like on a live preview. And again, this is just awesome, right? And we can also check out how it would look like on a smartphone. There we go, looks pretty awesome. I think we're done with that. The next thing we need to do is to have some kind of container or section. So what we can do is we can click here on plus icon again, and then just drag and drop a section inside here. And let's make sure to select the section. You can also always select it inside the navigator. Okay, you can also just click here inside navigator and section, or you can just click here inside the editor on it. And then let's head over to size and define the height to 100 VH. And as you can see, it worked. Okay, and VH is actually a CSS class. So again, this is actually a pure CSS what we are doing here, and it works just fine. So I can, for example, take here the color and change it, and there we go. We have a section that is now full width, and everything's working. Of course, I don't want to have a red color as a background, but a slight darkish grayish color, just like on Instagram. I think something like that. So if you want to use the exact same value as I, simply use route FA, FA, FA. And yeah, there we go. All right, we have done that. So the next thing we want to do is to kind of like do this here, right? So, and by the way, you can also use Instagram page as a template. Just make sure to use the template that uses the website template. And you could also use this as a reference. I actually used for this one an original reference, but yeah, since I already recreated that, I will use this one here. So since we have done this, let's add here 2 columns. Okay, and let's just drag and drop that inside the section like so. And now we have 2 columns, and we can of course customize them if we wanted to. So we will leave it as it is for this tutorial. We don't need to change that, but just in case you're wondering what these icons will do. And now let's add here inside the first column a div. Okay, and then I want to change the margin. You can change it in all direction at the exact same time by holding down Shift and the left mouse button, and then just drag it like so. And let's do something like 60. That looks good. And then I want to get again an image and drag that and drop that in. Choose image, and then let's upload a new one. And this time I have already prepared one called user. And again, you can simply Google for account, user, profile page, profile image, whatsoever, and you will find a bunch of different images that you can use. And I want to change that, I guess, to 200 pixels. There we go. Now let's click on the div block, and again, you can also always go here to the navigator and do it here. And then let's align this to the center. And there we go. And this is basically the same as text center, right? So it's the same thing. Now on Instagram itself, we have a round corner, so we need to do that here as well. And we can do this easily in WebFlow by just adding here a radius. Okay, and there we go. We have already a radius applied to the image. Again, this is just crazy, but we need more than 20 pixels. Let's increase that to 100. So now we have a round image, and yeah, there we go. We are pretty much finished with that. Let's talk about how we can do this here on the right side. So what we can do here is, first off, let's take the div block and hold down Ctrl C to copy that, and then let's click on column 2, copy V to paste it in. And now we have basically the same div block as here on the left side on the right side, but we don't need an image. And what I want to do instead of using here the margin and things like that is I need to add here another class, because if I change this now here, you will see that it also changes on the left side. That's because we are using the same selector, okay? And this selector is basically the same as the class in HTML. So if you create a new HTML tag, you oftentimes add a class to it that you can access via CSS, and this is basically the same thing, okay? In fact, this will be later on displayed in the HTML code that we can export. So what we can do here to fix this is to say write div, for example, or even better, let's call it info div. Okay, and now we can remove all of that, set it to 0, so that it's now aligned again, like so. And actually make sure that it's completely zeroed out. There we go. Well, that's not something I wanted to do. Make sure it's at 0 here. The same for here. And the same for here. Alright, and what I want to do now is just to add a margin here at the top. So there's kind of like almost in the center of this image here. Now we could also use flexbox for that, but I think we will be fine with this setup as well. So now that we have the div block here, let's add another div block inside here, and then what I want to do is to add an h1 tag to this div block. And again, you can always check out your navigator and compare to mine to see if you have the exact setup as I do. And let's change this actually to maybe an h2 tag. And then we want to remove also from the div block the text center property. So let's align this again to the left side. All right, let's call this one add code basecamp. And then what we want to do is to select the header, and I want to change the font to AXO. Again, you can use here any font you want, and then let's also change it to extra light. Okay, and let's check out how this looks like on the other devices and on other widths. Okay, so we get something like that, and that looks already pretty awesome if you ask me. Now the next thing I want to do is to kind of like align the columns. So what we can do here is we can customize that like so. And actually the original setup that we had was actually the best one. So instead of changing columns, let's try out to align the image to the right side. So let's select the div block. There we go. Let's see how this looks like now. All right. I think if we add this just to the center, just like we had it before, that we get pretty much the best result. And you know what we actually can do? We can align this image to the right side one more time, and then we can head over to tablet. And as you can see, this is now also applied to here. Okay, so if I click here on the div block, you see this is also applied to here, and then again it's also applied to here and to here. So here on the portrait mode it looks good, but on the landscape mode it looks bad. So what we can do is we can click here on align once we have selected here the landscape, and this will align this only for this one, for the landscape, and everything that is under it to the middle. Okay, so if I go down, you see it's also now aligned to the middle here. Okay, so this will be all applied to all widths that are under this width. But if we head over to the tablet, you see it's still aligned to the right side. The same applies for here. So we still have the original setup. Okay, so this is how you can make your website responsive inside WebFlow, and it's pretty amazing. Again, I cannot say it enough, I guess. So we got on that. Let's see, what do we need to do next? Okay, let's add the button quickly. So for the button itself, you could create a button completely on your own with a div, add a background color and then some text to it, or you could use the form. So the only downside here in WebFlow is that we need to use a form in order to be able to use a button. Okay, so if I would just drag and drop that here, and you see we get the message button can only be placed in a form. So we could add here a form, and in this setup I actually used a form, but for this tutorial, I will actually try to do it inside a div block. So let's add here another div block and make sure that the header is above the div blocks, like so. And then we want to choose this div block that is the parent of these two here, and then make sure to add here flexbox. Okay, and this is pretty crazy because we can use flexbox inside WebFlow just like so, and it works exactly like in CSS. Okay, and so what we want to do, we already have basically the setup we wanted, because we have now here the code base camp, and I can actually already add here some padding, I guess, like so. Let's see. Well, I guess let's add first off color. There we go. And then I want to change the height to 30 pixels. Where did it went? There we go. Had to add here a width. Let's take 80 pixels. And let's make sure that everything is aligned here horizontally. Okay, so let's select the div block here, and then make sure to select here center. There we go. And then we also want to make sure to have, actually we want to use baseline. So now it's aligned exactly to the H1. And let's add some, let's select the div block here one more time. And make sure to add kind of like a margin here. Okay, something like that. Now, obviously we don't want a red color, so let's change this again to something like that, a slight grayish color. And then I will just add here, I guess, an H1 and change it to an H5. In H6. So we can add here actually a button like so. Let's take this and add here a flexbox as well quickly to align this exactly to the middle. Well, this didn't work the way I wanted. Let's see. There we go. Let's add here also quickly a slight border. There we go. And seems like it's a little bit off. Not quite sure why that is so. Well, if not, let's add just a small margin here. Let's check out how this looks like on a live preview. There we go. All right. So we have to adjust it here because here it looks a little bit off. So all we have to do in WebFlow is to select this one. And what I want to do is here select the div block actually, and make sure to have wrap selected. Okay, so this way it automatically wraps it up. But again, if I head over, you see it didn't apply the wrap to all the other widths that are above the width from the portrait mode. So again, this is only applied to all widths that are under the portrait mode itself. So if I would change it to inside landscape, it would also then change it to the portrait mode, okay, if that makes sense. It would also apply it over there. But since we just added this to the portrait mode, it was only added there. And here we have basically the same styles as before. So it didn't change here anything. Okay, so we got that. We can also add here quickly a border maybe of 1 pixel. Make sure to change the color. Something like that. There we go. And we are pretty much finished with that. Let's take care now of the followers. So what I will do here is we can close this here, and then make sure to select the div block that holds all the childs here. And then we will add another div block. There we go. And just drag and drop that in. And then we also want to add here a few flexbox properties. But before we do that, let's add here an h1. And let's make this an h5. And let's call this one followers, or actually add a number like so. And you see we have now one problem, and that is that the heading is now full size. Okay, so instead of that, let's add here actually a new div block to it like so, and then let's add the heading to this div block. And then we can add also a paragraph to it. Paragraph, there we go. Make sure the paragraph is under the heading like so, and let's change the text here to followers. Quite a lot of followers, right? Now obviously this is not the way we want this thing to look like, so we need to change that. And here again we will use flexbox for that, and then we will say space between, and make sure to align horizontally like so. And now when I duplicate the div block 4 here, so Ctrl C, Ctrl V, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, you see that it kind of worked, but it doesn't look the way we want it to look like. So that's because I did one thing here wrong. Actually, I'm sorry for that. Ctrl Y to undo that. One more time, and make sure to select here display again. I selected actually the wrong div block, so make sure to select the parent of all of these childs here, and then we can use flexbox and then align it horizontally. There we go, now it worked. So let's just copy this div block now and paste it in. And as you can see, we have now here these 3 div blocks, and I can change this to follows, and then this one to posts. Okay, now let's select one of these div blocks, and then let's add a small, let's select our paragraph, and let's add a small margin to it to the left side. What I want to do is I simply will delete the div block here. So simply select it here in the navigator and then delete it. And then again, we would just copy that and paste it in. So this way we have now all of these styles also applied there. Follows and then posts. All right, this is like getting almost there, but we still have to do here a few things and change them. So one of the first things I want to do is to use space between, I guess. or justify here at the start. That's also a way of doing that. And then we can apply some margin to the left side to space this a little bit out. Let's check out how it looks like on the other widths. So obviously here it's a little bit off again. So what we can do here is, again, we can just take here the div block and then remove that, change that back to 0, right? And we could also use here for that a wrap. So it would just wrap up this whole thing whenever we, you know, reach this kind of width. And actually, let's re-add here some width to the div block. There we go. All right, so we got that. And now what we can do is to close here, I think. And then let's close this one as well. And then we want to create one more div. And make sure to drop the div block 5 into the div block. So this way it's a child of the div block itself. And then again, we would just create a new one and just drag and paste it here in. And then here we would just add, I guess, a paragraph. All right, and now let's head over and let's check out how this looks like. Right? Pretty happy how this turned out. Now the last thing that we actually need to do as to finish this is to add the images. So I will use for this grids, and yeah, we can use just like that grids inside WebFlow. So we cannot only use flexbox, but we can also use grids. Again, I can't say it enough how awesome this actually all is. So let's just grab here the grid, paste that here in, and then let's adjust this here. So what I want is, let's add here another column like so, and let's make sure that we have for the grid margin, and I will hold down shift to add, well, actually that was not something I wanted to do. I just want to add like maybe a margin of 23, and then we can actually a little bit more, something like 33. And then again, we can just take here, for example, the image, drag and drop that here, and choose an image, and I will upload again a new one, and this one is called Road, and I got this one from paxos.com, which is a pretty awesome site if you need free stock photos. Make sure to have HIDPI again checked, and then I guess we're pretty much finished with that. So now what I can do is just hold down Control and then paste that here in. Okay, like so. And well, there we go. We have basically our main layout down, and this all works. And if I go here to live preview, well, there we go. Now I guess I want to have more margin to all of that. And let's head over to tablets. I think here it looks fine as well. And then once we reach the landscape mode, I want to have like only 2 columns. So let's leave the preview mode, and then let's select the grid, and let's click here on edit grid, and let's remove here 1 from the columns. And there we go. That's all we had to do. Now we have just 2 columns and it works. And again, this was only applied to the landscape and everything that is under this particular width. Okay, so if I go back here to the standard width, you see everything is still working. Awesome. And if I go to the portrait mode, you see that it was also applied here. That's because the portrait mode is above, under the width of the landscape mode. And so for the portrait mode, I want to have like only 1 column. Okay, so again, let's click here on edit grid. Let's remove that, and there we go. Now we only have 1 grid. Save that, and let's check out how this looks like. Right. Now the only thing that I currently don't like is how big these images are. Let's see if I can. Let's just adjust the margin for the tablets. Like so. Okay, and again, this will be then applied to all the widths that are under the tablet width. So get again our old style back. But here it's now much more smaller. I think this looks now pretty good on desktop. And yeah, this is all responsive, right? All right, so we have done that. Pretty awesome. Now let's talk quickly about links, just in case you want to add more links and test that out inside WebFlow. So again, normally you would like to export that, but I just want to show you this quickly. So here we can click on this page icon here, and then we can click here on create new page, and let's call this one maybe account details or account, click create. And then we can link that. Okay, so if I head over to pages again, click on home, and then select here, for example, this link, and call this one maybe accounts, and let's actually remove this one here, and then let's make this a real link. So here we can click on the gear icon, select here this page icon again, and then let's click here on account. And so if I head over now to the live preview and click on account, you see this works, which is again, it's almost like magic, right? And it works just fine. So you could style also if you want to, for example, the like account page from Instagram. I'm not familiar how it looks like, although I could just Google it, I guess, because I'm not really using Instagram. But yeah, I hope you get the idea how WebFlow works, right? And the another crazy thing about all of that is that we can actually publish that. Before we do that, in just a moment, let's add here also another font for our links here. There we go. I guess maybe we will use an extra lightweight for it. All right. So we are pretty much finished with that. Again, I'm a huge fan of WebFlow. It's super easy to use. Obviously, I have some previous experience with it, although I haven't used it really that much, to be honest. But I really plan in using it much more, since I struggle kind of like with adding styles to my apps. And so again, if we head over now to export code, you see that we have a bunch of code here. And so again, this was all generated with the stuff we just did here inside the editor. And as you can see, it's pure HTML, super clean with classes. And we have here all these class names that we used here inside the selector, okay? So just keep in mind, here's actually the left margin that I just created. So this will be added just like a normal HTML class. And inside CSS, we have super clean CSS. And inside JavaScript, we currently don't have any JavaScript inside our project, but you could also add animations and things like that. And again, the only downside is that you have to upgrade the plan. But again, considering how much possibilities you get with WebFlow, I think it's worth the money, to be honest. And you can cancel it every time, just like I said. And again, I'm not sponsored by them by any means. I just think it's awesome, and I hope you guys can now see why it's really awesome. And so the last thing we want to do before we wrap up this tutorial is to publish that. So again, we can click here on publish and then click here on publish to select the domain. And this will be then published on this domain. So we can click on this icon. This will open up it on the inside a new tab. And there we go. We have basically our layout here. We can play around with that. We could share this and show this to other people what they think about it, and yeah, we could export it and use it with Rails. So many opportunities, and yeah, since I'm not a web designer itself, I'm pretty happy with the result. The last thing that I want to do is to change here actually the font as well, because currently I just use here Arial. There we go. Let's do the same for here, and again, you can use here any font you want. You don't have to follow the exact same styles as I do, obviously. But yeah, overall, I would say we have finished. All right, so I will wrap up this lesson here. I hope you guys learned a lot. And again, I hope you guys also stay safe. I hope you guys stay healthy. And if you enjoyed this tutorial, or if you want to see more inside WebFlow, or me doing stuff inside WebFlow, or more tutorials on WebFlow, let me know in the comment section, because it really helps me to understand what you guys want to see. And if you enjoyed, as always, make sure to like, subscribe. Thanks for taking your time to watch this video. And yeah, as always, see you maybe next time. Bye.